Andrew Tate, with his new BRUV political party, interesting intentional Masonic sign there, by the way, claims he wants to disrupt the UK's corrupt political establishment by becoming the figurehead for the UK's corrupt political establishment. Welcome back to the fledgling Disturbing Illusion channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon. And I hope you got your hip waders on, because
the shizzle's about to get real deep.
All right, I promised in my last video that I would go over the BRUV party mission. That's the Britain Restoring Underlying Values from Andrew Tate. And before I start this, we got to come to a conclusion, to a definition of what the state actually is. When I say state, of course, I'm talking about government. Doesn't matter if I'm talking about the government of America or the government of Great Britain or the government of Australia or New Zealand. It doesn't matter. All governments are the same. If you break it down, if you break down just the word governo and mentis, means to control the mind or mind control. To govern means to control. People want to control you against your will and without your consent, and government will always use the excuse that it is here to control you for your best interest, for your safety, for your security. They will wage war on your behalf. They will take money on your behalf. They will throw you into a cage because you broke their laws on your behalf, but they will do it on your behalf. And as they say, the alibi of tyrants is always going to be the safety and security of the general public. So the state, in Murray Rothbard's words, the state by its very nature must violate the generally accepted moral laws to which most people adhere. Most people are good, and they don't take stuff that doesn't belong to them. They don't harm people who don't want to be harmed. The state says that citizens may not take from another by force and against his will, and yet the state does just that. So if you say you're going to change the system, but you're going to be a part of the state, that criminal cartel, to do it, are you going to do it? How do you take down Al Capone's reign and his organized crime syndicate by becoming a part of the mob, doing what the mob does? It's aggression, it's violent force, it's coercion, and it's wealth redistribution. In other words, it's theft on a wide scale. That's what the state is. That's what the state has always been. And that's what the state will continue to be. So we're going to go over this. Again, this is from the BRUV party, Britain Restoring Underlying Values, a call to restore Britain from Andrew Tate. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but I do want to hit some highlights, and I do want to start from the beginning. Says a time-limited mission of accountability. This isn't about empty promises or lifelong careers in politics. It's about results. What is the result? He said that he wants to carve out more freedom for the people in Britain. Everything I pledge comes with a strict time limit. If I don't deliver, I step down. No excuses, no hiding, no second chances. Unlike the career politicians who cling to power while achieving nothing, I will hold myself accountable to the same standard that I demand from others. Now, if you want to see the standard that he lives by, go to my X page and I will give you in his own words what Andrew Tate lives by and what his standards actually are. And be prepared, because it may not be what you think they are, and it's not according to the moral compass that you go by. If I fail, I face the consequences, because leadership is about service, not self-preservation. He's right. This is a mission, not a reign. If you're going to become the prime minister and you are going to put your hands on the levers of power, it is about a reign. And you will see from his own verbiage, he intends to reign and rule and control individuals. And it ends the moment it stops delivering for the British people. We can save Britain quickly with immediate and decisive action. If you are going to take any action as a figurehead of the state, whether you're a president or a minister, you are going to take aggressive, coercive, thieving actions against other people. You're going to violate consent. You're going to come against individual freedoms. Unapologetic, relentless for Britain, no matter what. This is just kind of scary language if you think about it, because The problem with the world is that we have people who believe they have the right to rule other people. And they also believe that these people that they're ruling have the obligation to submit. And if they don't submit, then these rulers who believe that they have the right to rule believe that they have the right to punish people who don't submit to them. And Andrew Tate is no different. He says, look around you. Look at what we've become. A nation that once ruled the waves. Ruled the waves. We once ruled the waves. So he's saying this isn't about a reign. He says this is about service. This is a mission. This is not a reign. And yet he harkens back to when the nation once ruled the waves. Tell me that makes sense. That stood as the beacon of strength and freedom, now cowers under its own shadow. Our streets are dangerous. Our borders are wide open. And our culture, it's being eroded. This isn't the Britain our ancestors fought for. This isn't the Britain they died for. And this cannot be the Britain we leave to our children. They deserve what brave men died for. They deserve what you've struggled for. We must end the generational failure. And yeah, we do need to end the generational failure, but there's an axe that needs to decisively strike at a particular root that Andrew doesn't mention in this entire mission statement. Harsh migration control. Over 45,000 illegal migrants arrived on our shores last year, each one costing you, the British taxpayer, $15,000 annually. Okay, then who's the enemy? Is it the migrant, or is it the government that's stealing from the people to provide for those migrants? And why are those migrants coming in the first place? Maybe they're coming because the people who said they'd protect and serve the British people have incentivized those migrants to come over. So who is the real criminal here? The migrant who's invading your country, or the politician who's already invaded and is stealing from your country? That's your hard-earned money, funding people who have no respect for our borders, our laws, or our way of life. And yet he's not going to talk about the people who are actually foisting the crime. It is not a crime for a person who doesn't belong to or wasn't born in one country to cross an imaginary border and go to another country, as long as he's not harming, threatening to harm, or stealing anybody's stuff. The true criminals are the ones who are plundering you so they can provide for others. It's a massive wealth redistribution scheme that the state is all about and has always been about. The solution is clear. Not one more boat lands on British soil. Wait a second. The solution is clear. Turn your attention to the thieves and the villains who are actually making your life difficult and more expensive and eroding the purchasing power of the British pound. Boats will be leaving the UK filled with illegal migrants, and not a single one will be arriving on our shores. This is a campaign guarantee. He's looking at the wrong problem. The problem isn't migrants who come. It's the politicians who incentivize them to come and then transfer wealth into their pockets after they've plundered their own people that they're supposed to be representing. This is nonsense to me. This whole thing is nonsense. This is why we're not going to go through the whole thing, because it's almost like a child wrote this. You literally pinpointed the problem, but you're not going to turn your attention to and address the problem. You're going to put a Band-Aid on the thing that isn't the problem. These illegal migrants, so-called, would not be coming if the politicians weren't throwing breadcrumbs out to them. The Royal Navy will patrol our waters, and our message will be clear. If you come here illegally, you will not set foot on this land. So what's he going to do? This is wealth redistribution. So he's going to pour, I don't know how much money it's going to cost to fund the Royal Navy to patrol the waters so that migrants don't come. How much is that going to cost? That's wealth redistribution. So we have the politicians already engaged in wealth redistribution, giving incentives to migrants to come. And now Andrew Tate's going to go, hey, the solution to the problem is massive wealth redistribution by using the Royal Navy to keep the migrants from coming. Instead of turning off the spigot at the house, he's going to the end of the hose where the water's coming out, when he could have stopped the water up by the house in the first place. Our borders are sacred. Our sovereignty is not negotiable. Yeah, it is, because you're not doing anything to address the problem that diminishes and dissolves and destroys your sovereignty. And that's okay. I'll just go ahead and I'm going to cut to the chase. It's the central bankers. The central bankers empower and incentivize and enrich the politicians who claim to be representing you, but they really represent the central banking cartel and the corporate elitists who wouldn't exist without government. So your real problem is not looking out past the shores of your country. It's looking in and going, oh, wow, we have a domestic terrorism problem. We have a domestic economic terrorism problem that I, Andrew Tate, am not going to address. I'm going to put a Band-Aid on the thing that's not causing the wound. British men died for British soil. It is not yours, and you have no right to it. He's talking to the migrants. It is not a line on a map. It is an island defended with the lives of the brave. If you get on a boat, we won't let you in. We have no obligation to save you from that boat, no matter how rough the sea. You shouldn't be on the boat in the first place. You have no rights to our land. Illegal immigration fall to zero, enforced by the Royal Navy. Do not come to our isle. Do not risk it. We do not offer salvation. Prime Minister Tate, who's looking out toward the migrants instead of at the actual criminals who are actually wreaking havoc with economic devastation and terrorism on their own people. Knife crime epidemic, zero tolerance, maximum deterrence. Well, if you wanted to deter knife crime, then what you need to do is turn your attention to the politicians who have criminalized other people, the British people, from defending themselves. Look up the gun laws for the British people. Look how difficult it is for them to get a personal protection device. Last year, there were 50,000 knife crime offenses in England and Wales, which is ridiculous because there's no such thing as knife crime. There's only such a thing as criminals using tools like hammers and baseball bats and knives to kill people. That's 137 every single day. Mothers burying sons, fathers burying daughters, lives stolen, futures destroyed. And what's the punishment? A slap on the wrist? A few years in jail? No, the punishment will be seen by every Briton every day. Introducing BBC Punishment, a 24/7 live broadcast of knife crime offenders serving solitary confinement. No redemption arcs, no second chances, just the cold, hard reality of a life wasted in a concrete cell. Imagine a 15-year-old boy tempted to pick up a blade, turning on the TV and seeing a man grown old and die all alone. That's not cruelty, it's deterrence, and it will save lives. You know what'll really save lives? What'll really save lives is saying, you know what? The politicians have criminalized innocent people by initiating strict gun control measures, and we ain't going to have that anymore. We're going into Parliament, and we're going to arrest the people who are really the villains. Nope, that's not what he said. No, we're just going to... And it is good to, if somebody does do that, there needs to be a swift public penalty for anybody who's going to harm somebody else. But Andrew Tate is willing to harm somebody becoming the prime minister so that he can be the one to pilfer the people, so that he can be the one to be seen as the hero in the nation. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. More accurately, power draws like a magnet the corruptible. Reforming the BBC, a rotten institution. I'll agree with that. The BBC was once a cornerstone of British culture. Today, it's a stain on our nation's name. Sexual abuse scandals, allegations of exploitation, reports of content. This is not just negligence, it's rot. It must be purged. And then he says, and as the prime minister, the BBC will be stripped down and rebuilt. Its mission will be factual reporting, not propaganda. And then he says, the BBC will get its topics from X. The BBC will get its topics from Elon Musk, another billionaire that we can trust, and have a community notes style online system for verification of all stories and debate with the public. The BBC will have a public trust score based on this is like a social credit system he wants to set up for the BBC, and don't think that he won't also set it up for you, because that's what tyrants do. Accurate reporting of events and voted on by the populace. The BBC must reach a minimum trust level to be government funded. The BBC is going to be government funded. So Andrew Tate is actually admitting, now when you're talking about government funding, it's really funding of the people, and the people might not choose to fund the BBC, but Andrew Tate is going to be, well, if you want us to plunder from the people to keep the BBC's doors open, well, that's what we're going to do, but it must reach a minimum trust level first. Trust me, I'm going to be the prime minister. You can totally trust me with the ring of power. The BBC must serve Britain, not undermine it. Yeah, we're going to force money away from you, Britons, so that we can fund the BBC. But don't worry, we're gonna make sure that we have a community notes section just like X does, and we're gonna get all our information from X. Protecting our children, restoring traditional values, talking about banning stuff. He's actually going to initiate censorship, which I'm not for any of this stuff anyway. But guess what? Freedom is dangerous. The only thing more dangerous is not having freedom. You need the freedom to be able to discuss all issues. Another thing is he's going to ban these books right here from public schools. Well, what if the public school system is the problem? What if it's not an education system? What if it's actually an indoctrination system? And what if the only reason they can keep the doors open is because they also plunder from the people? So what we see here is Prime Minister Andrew Tate, who's going to continue plundering the people, but he's going to do it by funding his own programs. You're still a tyrant. Britain's history is under attack. Our heroes are vilified, our traditions dismissed, and our streets no longer reflect the country we know and love. It's time to restore pride in our heritage. Appoint a minister for British culture to celebrate and preserve our history. So you're going to have a minister that's going to be paid by the plunder of the people to celebrate and preserve your history? Cap non-British residents at 10% of the population to maintain cultural balance. So the government is going to decide who has to leave and who's going to stay. This is tyranny. This is tyranny. And again, all those illegal migrants are there in the first place because the politicians incentivize them to be there. Replace modern art with statues and monuments honoring British heroes. That's going to cost a pretty penny. How many pounds will that cost, Andrew? Ensure every street in Britain feels British with English signage, flags, and traditional architecture. That's going to cost a lot of money too. So basically what Prime Minister Tate is saying here is, I'm going to spend. And if you're going to spend, that means you need to plunder. Or else, how are you going to fund any of these elaborate programs? Any illegal migrant, which is identified by a police officer, those police officers that, they're there to protect and serve us, will be arrested and deported from the nation within 7 days. No court case. No individual rights. Doesn't matter how long you've been there. If you're illegal and you've been here for 20 years, supporting the economy, making friends, building families, you're gone. No compromise. Illegals will leave. You have no rights to British soil. Men died for our flag. It should be seen on our streets. Now, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be, they'll respond to this. This is, Hitler said the same kind of things. People loved him because he instilled within them a nationalist pride. A nationalist pride which locked a whole bunch of people into an echo chamber, and all they could see was their Führer, their savior, Hitler, Tate, Stalin, Mussolini. Take your seat, Tate. He wants to take a seat at the table. Revolutionizing education, building the future Britain deserves, investing where it matters. I just want to point out, I don't want to draw this video out, but I just want to point out, no more foreign aid. The only way you can have foreign aid is by having a dishonest fiat currency system, which Britain has, which the United States has. Nowhere again in this document is he going to go after the root cause of the problem of the wars. He mentions wars down here. He's like, no more war. He says no more foreign aid. I agree with that. Foreign aid spending will be cut to zero. That's a good idea. But are the bankers who control everything? Bankers control prime ministers, Andrew Tate. You become a prime minister is like saying that you're going to be a popcorn vendor at the Dallas Stadium. You're replaceable. You're controllable. You are nothing in the grand scheme of things. These people have untold trillions, if not quadrillions of dollars. You will never know their names. You don't know who's in power, but we do know the central banking operation controls everything. If they control the issuance and the value of your currency like they control ours, they control every single person and every single thing. And there's nothing you can do about it unless the people come together and get rid of the central banking cartel, somewhat akin to what Andrew Jackson did back in the 1800s. With the banksters back then. One of the last things he's reported as saying is, I killed the banks. That's what needs to be done. But Andrew's not going to talk about it. And when you're not talking about what really needs to be done, it makes you wonder if he's dangling from the end of a central banking string. What do you think? Leave your comments. Foreign aid spending will be cut to zero. That's a good idea. Do you think the central bankers are going to go for that? Nope. Every single pound will be reinvested into building Britain or rebuilding Britain, modernizing schools, repairing facilities, and ensuring every child learns in an environment that inspires success. Billions will fund infrastructure projects to rejuvenate neglected towns and cities, giving communities the resources they need to thrive. And I know he talks about going to alternative currency sources like cryptocurrency and putting things on the blockchain, but he's not talking about getting rid of the central banking cartel. He's talking about prioritizing healthcare benefits for Britons. Well, that's going to require a massive wealth transfer, a massive power transfer. Look at this. Accountability in government. Did you know that over 30% of MPs fail to meet basic attendance standards? These are the people meant to lead us, to fight for us. They're not even showing up. It's simple. You don't show up, you're out. MPs will work for the people, not their paychecks. Well, MPs aren't working for the people because they're creating policies that give a wide berth to the central banking cartel and the corporate elitists and draw the immigrants that you don't want in your land coming on your land. Weekly referendums powered by blockchain will give every Briton a voice on the issues that matter most. Oh, what does that sound like? That sounds like the tyranny of the majority. That sounds like democracy. It sounds like two wolves and a lamb deciding on what to have for dinner. And then he says, we're not just taking back our borders, we're taking back our tyranny of the majority. There you go. Andrew Tate is going to be no different than any other political parasite out there. As a matter of fact, he's promising to be just as parasitic, if not more parasitic. Zero tolerance to crime. If you're a non-citizen and you commit a crime here, no matter how small, you're gone. Instant deportation, zero appeals. For those born here, we'll put 25,000 plainclothes officers in London. There's more wealth and power transfer, and they will have the power. Plainclothes, you won't even know who they are. He's going to increase the surveillance state. He's going to increase the police state, and you won't even know who's a police officer. Total control. Violent offenders will face the full force of the law, and police officers will meet strict physical standards. Britain will once again be a safe place to walk, to live, to thrive. Nope, not in a police state, man. No way. Now, look at this. A transparent and fair theft system. It's a fair extortion. It's a just extortion system. The current tax code is a labyrinth, punishing success and driving talent away. That ends now. A new simplified tax code that can be understood in under 20 minutes. No hidden pitfalls or penalties for getting richer. Success will be rewarded, not penalized. This will stop the exodus of Britain's brightest and ensure that prosperity stays within our borders. The brand new tax code for cryptocurrency, working with industry leaders to encourage. He wants to implement a brand new tax code for cryptocurrency. How about this, Andrew? Hands off of cryptocurrency. That's supposed to be the whole reason we have cryptocurrency. The whole vision for Bitcoin was to have a decentralized, honest money system that people could trade with without government interference. And here you are saying that we're going to implement a brand new tax code for crypto. There shouldn't be one. A brand new theft code for cryptocurrency, working with industry leaders to encourage investment in this innovative and world-changing technology. The UK will not be left behind. Restoring masculinity and strength, the foundation of a thriving nation. Stronger future for Britain, laying the foundations for independence and prosperity. the national Bitcoin reserve, but he doesn't talk about the central bankers who are causing all the problems in the first place. You can't have inflation. You can't have wars. You can't have foreign aid. You can't have the massive theft of the people. You can't have representatives just representing corporations without a dishonest money Ponzi scheme. And you're not even addressing it, Andrew. Why is that? That's all I'm going to go over, but that's all you really need to know. We made ourselves, I guess, about 85% through it. But the bottom line is Andrew Tate wants to be your ruler. He wants the ring of power. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Power draws and attracts like a magnet the corruptible. The state will always be that great fiction by which everyone seeks to live at the expense of everyone else. He will not be a different ruler than Napoleon or Stalin or Mussolini or Pol Pot or Hitler or FDR or any one of the global tyrants. He actually wants to be included with the number of global tyrants as he spreads his own brand of tyranny. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought, please, in the comment section below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. Don't forget to subscribe to my email list through my website, highimpactflix.com. If you want to get up to speed on what Andrew Tate says about Andrew Tate, go to my X page called High Impact Flicks. Go to Facebook at High Impact Flicks. Same with Instagram and Rumble. I will see you in the next video.